Translator, Ninetales. Editor, Dark Gem. Imperial Preceptor's wife had likewise ascended the Temple of Heaven, as she beheld Qin Mu slide the sword back into its scabbard, and Emperor Yanfeng stand with his gaze fixed upon the distant horizon. A trace of anxiety clouded the young woman's brow. The sea of slaughter was gradually subdued. The monks of Great Thunderclap Monastery and the Taoists of Tao sect who could flee had already scattered like frightened birds, while the rest lay slain upon the stone steps. Most had perished here, their blood soaking into the ancient altar until the Temple of Heaven was steeped in crimson. From the 999th step, rivulets of blood crept downward, winding all the way to the first step before pooling at the feet of envoys, cult masters, and sect masters alike. The Temple of Heaven, once the sacred place where offerings were presented to the firmament, had been transformed into a shrine bathed in scarlet. None could say who was the first to drop to one knee and cry out, "Long live your majesty!" Whoosh! At the foot of the towering steps, whether officials of court, emissaries of distant lands, sect leaders, or masters of cults, all knelt upon one knee as one and shouted in unison, "Long live your majesty!" Emperor Yanfeng turned slowly while standing atop the summit of the stairs. Spreading his arms wide, he received the tide of worship from his subjects. After a moment, he lifted his hands weakly and said, "Rise." Imperial Preceptor's wife studied Emperor Yanfeng. Behind him, Qin Mu and the 8 great supervisors stood as well upon the Temple of Heaven, yet none of them bent the knee. "Husband, it may not be a blessing for Cult Master Qin to display his prowess so openly," she murmured softly to Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor. He cast a glance at Qin Mu and shook his head. To him, the Eternal Peace Empire is merely a field for tempering his heart and honing his path. Even the slaying of the Crown Prince is but a step along that road. He carries little burden from it, and the Emperor has many matters wherein he must rely upon his strength. Imperial Preceptor's wife was startled. "Tempering?" Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor nodded. Tempering. The Crown Prince had colluded with Tao sect and Great Thunderclap Monastery to scheme rebellion, plotting to assassinate the Emperor and seize the throne. The gravity of such crimes was immense. Yet in the annals penned by court scribes, there would be only a single plain line. On the 18th day of the 2nd month, Crown Prince Yuxia conspired to rebel. On the 6th day of the 3rd month, executed. Nothing more. The details were not for the eyes of the common world. Thus would history reduce his storms of blood and thunder into passing legends. Legends soft and twisted that truth itself would blur beyond recognition. In the wake of rebellion came a merciless purge. The officials aligned with the Crown Prince had their estates confiscated and their clans put to death. Taoists of Tao sect and monks of Great Thunderclap Monastery were seized and cast into prison for being escorted to execution grounds. From the 7th day of the 3rd month until the 1st day of the 4th month, blades fell ceaselessly in the marketplace where food was sold. Only then did the killing subside. Amid these events, peculiarities also arose. For instance, the head of the Crown Prince was nowhere to be found. It had vanished without a trace. No matter how thoroughly the environs of the Temple of Heaven were searched, it could not be recovered. In the end, Emperor Yanfeng did not order further investigation. Instead, he issued a decree striking Crown Prince Ling Yuxia's name from the imperial genealogy. The Crown Prince's birth mother, the former empress, already deceased, was posthumously demoted to the rank of imperial concubine. Emperor Yanfeng then reorganized his court. Younger imperial scholars from the Imperial College were selected and elevated. Capable officers were drawn from each army to fill the vacated posts. A few days later, the Emperor summoned Second Prince Ling Yushu from the borderlands to deliberate upon his responsibilities. After several more days, the Emperor, claiming slight ill health, conferred upon Ling Yushu the title of Crown Prince, entrusting him to oversee the empire and govern its politics. Emperor Yanfeng summoned Crown Prince Ling Yushi and asked, "Yushi, now that you preside over affairs of state, what is the first matter you must attend to?" He had never held this second son in high esteem. Among his children, Ling Yushu was not considered exceptional. He lacked the greatest resolve, and his aptitude was not the most outstanding. In those respects, Ling Yuxia had once commanded his admiration, bold, resolute, and gifted. Yet that very boldness had led him too far. As for the other elder sons, they had died prematurely while awaiting the day he would relinquish the throne. Ling Yushu contemplated for a moment. Fresh from the battlefield, months of war had imbued him with a fierce heroic spirit and a measure of decisiveness. Because he had been stationed beyond the capital when Ling Yuxia colluded with Great Thunderclap Monastery and Dao sect to rebel, he had emerged unscathed. Ling Yuxi spoke solemnly. "Your son will abolish elder brothers." Emperor Yanfeng's face darkened. "You are now the eldest son. I have no such son as him." Ling Yushu paused briefly, then continued, "Your son will abolish the treaties he signed with foreign nations and reclaim the lands we ceded. I will then purge those sects that sought to swallow our territories amid the chaos. Dao sect and Great Thunderclap Monastery have suffered grievous losses, and their experts have fallen in great numbers. I will seize back more than half the lands that belong to them." The Emperor's expression eased. "And then? I will assist Father in disaster relief. But before that, I will first compose a decree of my crimes." Emperor Yanfeng erupted in fury and roared, "Say that again!" Ling Yushu bowed deeply and answered in steady tones, "I will first write a decree of my crimes and pray to heaven that it send no further calamities so as to soothe the hearts of the people." The Emperor's countenance remained grim as he asked coldly, "Who taught you this?" Ling Yushu faltered slightly. I asked you, who taught you this?" Emperor Yanfeng rose, unable to restrain his wrath. Pacing back and forth, he thundered, "You are my son. I know you thoroughly. You cannot speak such words of your own accord. These are not thoughts born of a second prince, but reflections that arise only from one seated upon the throne. Speak. Who instructed you?" Cold sweat beaded upon Ling Yushu's brow. Gritting his teeth, he replied honestly, "When I returned to the capital, I visited Imperial Preceptor and happened upon Palace Grandee tending to his injuries. This son discussed with them how Father would question me on governance to test me, so I sought their counsel." The Emperor's anger gradually subsided. He asked calmly, "Who proposed the decree of crimes?" "Both Imperial Preceptor and Palace Grandee," Ling Yushu answered. "They said this calamity was wrought by heavenly gods, so we should follow their will and proceed cautiously. If we confront them head-on, we will only suffer defeat. It is better that I, as Crown Prince, write the decree rather than Father. If Father writes it, it would signify denial of reform, but I may feign civility." Emperor Yanfeng's expression softened as he seated himself. "I understand your abilities and wisdom, your courage and discernment. I knew you would not have conceived of such matters alone. That is why I grew angry. Even if you seek counsel, when I question you on statecraft, you must also speak your own understanding." Ling Yushu assented. The Emperor sighed. "I do not worry about Imperial Preceptor, but about Palace Grandee. I fear that when a day arrives when Imperial Preceptor and I are gone, you will not be able to restrain him. Now that my cultivation is lost and my divine treasures are shattered, it is difficult for me to rebuild my path. Thus I have appointed you to oversee the empire and manage governance. Be cautious and diligent. If I cannot restore my cultivation, my lifespan will at most be 50 years. When that time comes, you will ascend the throne. Broaden your vision and broaden your heart. Learn to think for yourself." At that very moment, upon Saint Arrival Mountain of the Heavenly Devil cult, Qin Mu led the Hall Masters, Elders, and Disciples to the graves of Heavenly King Qian and Heavenly King Lu. The latter had left only a heap of ashes. The former's body had never been recovered. Thus, what lay buried were merely the garments they had worn in life. Qin Mu stepped forward and placed Crown Prince Ling Yushu's severed head before the graves. Incense was offered, and all paid their respects. "Two heavenly kings, if your spirits yet hear, you may rest in peace," Heavenly King Yu intoned. "Heaven now sends calamities upon us. Troubled times are inevitable. Senior brothers, protect our sacred cult." After the rites were complete, the crowd dispersed. Heavenly King Yu approached Qin Mu and hesitated before asking, "Will Cult Master still return to eternal peace?" Qin Mu nodded. Heavenly King Yu was perplexed. "This time our sacred cult seized the Imperial Preceptor, slew the false Emperor, and killed numerous strong practitioners of Dao sect and Great Thunderclap Monastery. I fear the Emperor will guard against us. Is Cult Master not concerned?" Qin Mu gazed at the gravestones of the two heavenly kings and replied serenely, Dao Sect and Great Thunderclap Monastery still stand. The Emperor's foremost concern is to eliminate those two great sacred grounds. Until he does, he will not turn his blade upon our Heavenly Saint cult. Only after they are cleansed must we tread carefully. For now, there is no cause for worry. Heavenly King Yu reflected and found the reasoning sound. Qin walked to the sacred tree and gently traced its grain with his fingers. Lifting his gaze to its canopy, he said, "The path of the saint is none other than the daily use of the common people. Heavenly King Yu, do you truly believe we can alter the great Tao of heaven and earth?" Heavenly King Yu stepped forward and said, "I am by nature dull-witted, and Cultmaster's question is profound beyond me. Yet I know this. In ancient times, there were no roads. As more people walked, a road formed. When rain turned paths to mud, people laid down stone slabs, making them easier to traverse. Later, men found walking too slow and invented wheels and carriages. Thus horse-drawn carts sped along those roads. I think there was never a road meant for carriages, yet once humans created them, a new path was added to the great Tao of heaven and earth." Qin Mu was stunned. Heavenly King Yu continued, "After that, men found horse carriages slow and forged ships that soar through the sky. Lacking copper and gold, they extracted them from ore. When letters could not travel far enough, they devised flying mail. I think that as humans create more and more, the great Tao of heaven and earth grows as well." Qin Mu stood slightly dazed. He beheld the sacred tree, one trunk, branching into many limbs, each limb further branching without end. Facing that sight, he could not help but smile faintly. In the past, when winter gripped the north, fresh fruits and vegetables were scarce. Now, with flying ships, southern harvests can reach the north within days. Once there were desolate lands where demons roamed. Now we cast spells to reshape terrain, turning barren hills and wild rivers into verdant slopes and limpid waters. Once soil was infertile and yields were few, now we transform wasteland into fertile fields, Heavenly King Yu said. In the past, wind, rain, thunder and lightning were mere natural phenomena. Now men can command them. Cultmaster, have we not changed the great Tao of heaven and earth? Qin Mu nodded with a smile. I think we have. Cultmaster, I am naturally dull. You are not dull at all. Qin Mu interrupted with a laugh. Heavenly King Yu, you are a capable man. There is no need to belittle yourself. What did you wish to ask earlier? Cultmaster said the Emperor might move against our Heavenly Saint cult after eradicating the two great sacred grounds. I wonder if Cultmaster has countermeasures. Perhaps Cultmaster could also ascend the throne. Qin Mu shook his head. I will not. So long as the Emperor's actions align with our aims, it matters not whether I sit upon the throne. Moreover, Imperial Preceptor is now the fourth Heavenly King of our sacred cult. If he meets no misfortune, how could the Emperor dare move against us? Besides, it will not be easy to eradicate Dao Sect and Great Thunderclap Monastery. Do not dwell upon it. I came to eternal peace only for tempering and cultivation. Translator, Ninetales. Editor, Dark Gem. Qin Mu descended from Saint Arrival Mountain like wandering swordsman returning from distant peaks and made his way back to Imperial College. The moment his silhouette appeared, Gu Linyuan hurried over with great enthusiasm and immediately set up a welcoming banquet, cups brimming and dishes laid out in abundance. Qin Mu widened his eyes, caught between laughter and helplessness. With a smile that did not know whether to bloom or wither, he asked, Lord Gu, is there truly a need to go to such lengths? Gu Linyuan laughed heartily. We tread the same devil path. How could we not lend one another support? Cultmaster Qin, is the Junior Protector sword to your liking? It suits me well. I have no intention of returning it. Qin Mu replied unhurriedly, the rules of our great ruins. I know! Gu Linyuan roared with laughter. I spent 200 years in the great ruins. How could I not understand its rules? Whatever one seizes with one's own ability is never returned. See, you are treating me as an outsider again. Ah, I resided in the great ruins for 2 centuries. Surely that land counts as half my homeland. We are half fellow countrymen. Now that Cultmaster Qin has returned from our shared homeland, how could I not host a feast to ease that faint homesickness? Qin Mu was struck speechless and finally sighed. Lord Gu's realm of understanding is far above mine. This little brother truly admires you. I dare not. Cultmaster Qin is the gifted youth, a hero born of heaven." After mutual flattery flowed like wine between them, Gu Linyuan sighed with emotion. "When I first beheld you in the great ruins, I knew at once you were no common talent. I foresaw meteoric success in your path, yet never did I imagine this day would arrive so swiftly. Cultmaster Qin. Ah, by addressing you so, am I not again making myself an outsider? Cultmaster, unforeseen winds have emptied many first and second rank positions in court. Could the Cultmaster perhaps pull a few strings?" Qin Mu could neither laugh nor cry. "Lord Gu, I am but a fifth-rank palace grandee. If Cultmaster does not consider me an outsider, then call me Linyuan." Qin Mu steadied his breath. "I am merely a fifth-rank palace grandee without real authority. How could I interfere in matters concerning the rise of first and second-rank officials? To speak truth, the sword that slew the Crown Prince was this very Junior Protector sword I swindled from Lord Gu. The Emperor harbours grievances in his heart, and is wary of my heavenly saint cult. If I were to speak on your behalf, I would only bring you harm." Gu Linyuan smiled knowingly. "Indeed so. Cultmaster is wise. Allow me to raise a cup to you." He was a perceptive man. His banquet was never meant to have Qin Mu plead for promotion. It was meant to mend old grievances and forge friendship. Whether or not Qin Mu was presently favoured by the Emperor, he was someone Gu Linyuan had to befriend. The devil cult master of the heavenly devil cult stood on equal footing with Rulai and Dao Master. To cultivate a bond with Qin Mu was akin to forming ties with Rulai or Dao Master themselves. If such a relationship could be nurtured over a banquet, then it was a bargain of immeasurable profit. When the feast concluded, Gu Linyuan personally escorted Qin Mu back towards Scholar's residence. Along the way, Qin Mu noticed unfamiliar faces wandering Imperial College and was filled with confusion. After the rebellion, the new Crown Prince revoked the Renegade's treaty and reclaimed the lands. Several foreign nations were seized by fear and thus sent peaceful envoys to study the culture of eternal peace, Gu Linyuan explained, reading his expression. The Crown Prince has permitted foreigners to seek knowledge here, while certain aristocratic descendants enroll in Imperial College. Qin Mu nodded, then his gaze halted upon a familiar figure. Slightly startled, he smiled and called out, "Pan Gong Tso." The prairie-born youth turned, puzzlement clouding his eyes. Behind him trailed numerous retainers from his homeland, among them 2 great shamans of Roland's Golden Palace. Pan Gong Tso murmured a question to one at his side. A great shaman bent close and whispered in reply. Comprehension dawned in Pan Gong Tso's eyes, and he returned a courteous yet distant salute. "So it is the Heavenly Devil Cult Master. What business do you have with me, Cult Master?" Qin Mu was once again taken aback and only shook his head. "None." Pan Gong Tso departed with his entourage. Qin Mu frowned faintly. Gu Linyuan noticed and asked, "Cult Master, you know this Pan Gong Tso?" "He is the youngest son of the barbarian D-Empire's Khan. I once saw him training his fists at the frontier. His boxing bore a unique bearing, likely rooted in an uncommon constitution." Qin Mu watched the receding back of Pan Gong Tso in contemplation. He once challenged Chancellor Ba Shan, declaring he would surely defeat him one day. That left a deep impression on me. Why does it seem as though he meets me for the first time? Gu Linyuan smiled. Youthful temperament. Perhaps he simply forgot. Qin Mu returned to Scholar's residence, where the dragon Qilin lay sprawled outside. Upon entering his room, he felt an inexplicable loneliness, as though something were amiss. If only Linga were here. He sighed softly. Had Hu Linga been present, she would have tidied the room into neat order. The entire residence would feel warm and welcoming. Suddenly, the dragon Qilin's low voice drifted in from outside. "Young lady, whom do you seek?" "Is your cult master Qin within?" came a pleasant voice. "He is." "I shall go in." "Very well." Qin Mu immediately stepped outside and saw Ling Yuxiu pushing the door open. The young maiden smiled, lips crimson and teeth white, clad in a red-collared gown. As she stepped into the courtyard, her youthful aura surged like spring wind, stirring Qin Mu's heart. "The cowherd!" Her eyes shone brightly as she approached with a smile. "That big dog at your door is easy to speak with. I shall serve him on the New Year's banquet table. He cannot even guard a door properly," Qin Mu declared ruthlessly. The dragon Qilin's voice echoed from outside. "Cult Master, I heard that." "I meant for you to hear it." "Aside from eating and sleeping, What else do you do?" Qin studied the princess closely. She had grown ever more beautiful. Though traces of childish innocence lingered, she was taller than him now, a blooming young lady. Her spring gown could not conceal her alluring figure, twin curves straining like ripe fruit. His gaze struggled to withdraw. He himself had begun to grow as well, sprouting wildly like weeds after spring rain in a desolate land. When they last met, she had still been a wild lass clad in men's attire, carefree and unrestrained. Ling Yushu walked to the yellow pear tree in the courtyard. Only small buds adorned its branches, blossoms yet to unfurl, and stamens yet to emerge. She extended her slender jade hands to touch the budding flowers and smiled. "How interesting of you, to plant a pear tree upon a jade mountain. When the blossoms bloom, I must return to admire them." "Do not move." Qin eyes lit up. "Hold that pose, just a moment." He hastily prepared brush, ink, paper, and inkstone to paint. Ling Yushu grew impatient. "Are you finished yet? My arm aches." "At once." Qin completed most of the painting, yet halted before the final stroke. He produced his seal and pressed it onto the paper before placing the final stroke with a satisfied smile. "It is done." Ling Yushu came over to examine the painting. She saw herself rendered with a subtle shyness, her inward bashfulness captured perfectly. "How lifelike!" she exclaimed in admiration. "Why did you stamp your seal before finishing the final stroke?" "My painting skill is too exquisite. If I placed the last stroke first, you would step out of the painting and flee. This stamp is also a seal." "Look closely. The carving is not my surname but a sealing rune," Qin explained. Ling Yushu leaned closer to inspect the seal, and they stood shoulder to shoulder. Qin gaze shifted to her face, the soft blush upon her fair cheeks, her bright eyes, her graceful neck. Her earnest expression made his pulse quicken. "They truly are sealing runes," Ling Yushu said in astonishment. "If I erase this seal, could I truly step out of the painting?" Qin nodded. "I used bestowing soul skill and bestowing the divine soul with a dot using mutual sensitivity. I have succeeded only once before, and I cannot be certain this time. Best to seal it lest you run away." Ling Yushu glanced at him shyly and swiftly rolled up the painting. "This painting is mine. Do not steal it. Ah, nearly forgot. Father summons you to the palace to diagnose his injuries. I encountered the eunuch bearing the decree and took over the task." Qin straightened his robes. "Will you accompany me?" "Of course. It has been long since we met, and I have much to tell you." The young pair stepped outside. The dragon Qilin lifted his head. "Cult Master, I shall guard the door and admit no one." "Very well," Qin said. "Do well and you will not grace the New Year's table. And train harder. Memorize every muscle of that green bull. How do you expect to defeat him otherwise?" As they left Scholars' residence, scholars greeted them with forced smiles. Many looked fearful, having heard that Qin was the devil cult master of the heavenly devil cult, a savage who had severed Ling Yuxia's head before the emperor. Outside, Chancellor Ba Shan strode over, accompanied by Wei Yong and Yue Qinghong. Both had clearly advanced in cultivation under his tutelage. Behind them walked a massive green bull, muscles bulging, striding upright on two legs. Fire snorted from his nostrils, a peony held between his teeth, his appearance ferocious beyond measure. Chancellor Ba Shan halted and smiled. "Cult Master Qin, are you two eloping?" "We are not," Ling Yushu retorted angrily. "Do not spout nonsense. Teacher Ba Shan, father has summoned him to the palace." Ba Shan laughed heartily and turned to Qin. "I just encountered that Pangong So brat. He has grown strange. Though he recognizes me, he is no longer the same Pangong So." Qin nodded. "I felt the same. He did not recognize me, as if he were another person entirely." "His strength is formidable, no weaker than yours," Ba Shan said gravely. Qin blinked. "No weaker than mine, I am very strong." Ba Shan gave him a look. "His Six Directions divine treasure is nearing breakthrough, and I sense a terrifying power hidden within him. You may not defeat him. Has that barbarian encountered some miraculous fortune? It feels less like fortune and more like spirit possession. Go see the Emperor. I will seek you later." Qin entered the palace with Ling Yushu and saw Emperor Yan Feng and the imperial preceptor present. Beside them stood an unsightly man whose face was covered in warts, currently diagnosing their injuries. Qin stepped forward. Emperor Yan Feng lifted his head with a smile. "Palace Grandee has arrived." The warty man turned toward Chin-Mu and grinned, his expression like a toad spirit with a weeping smile. "Junior brother, is Teacher, that old fellow, still well?" Chin-Mu halted and extended an arm to shield Ling Yuxiu behind him. "Little Poison King?"